Radhe Radhe Nitin ji.
Radhe, thank you, Chandana ji, thank you Padmini ji for such a wonderful session. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita session. Radhe Radhe Nitin ji, over to you.
Radhe Radhe, Pallavi ji. Thank you, Padmini ji and Gayatri ji, for the wonderful session. A very warm welcome to all of you to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. If you're joining in for the first time, very warm welcome. So today we are actually completed our chapter 3. It has been a pretty long journey of 1 year and close to 1 month. So we completed our chapter 3, and today we will be starting off with chapter 4, verse 1. And we will follow, when we close a chapter and when we start a new chapter, we will recite certain mantras, shlokas as well as part of that. But today we are going to set the base, set the context for this first shloka. We'll go into that detail probably tomorrow, but then today we will do the tilling of the ground just to set the context, how this knowledge comes, the different kind of knowledge, how we can acquire that, what are the limitations of certain kinds of knowledge, and what is a bona fide knowledge, and how does it disseminate. Those are some of the concepts that we will discuss. Today's discussion also, we are going to have it around some of the often debated topics, or some of the things that you probably are challenged with your growing up kids as well, or somebody who thinks they are of a scientific temperament, especially teenagers. When they reach a certain age, they need proof for everything, right? I need proof for it. Can you scientifically prove it? It doesn't make sense. So we'll tackle some of those questions as well, and see what our scriptures have to say about that, and limitations of some of the things that we think are bulletproof. So with that, let's get started. I'll pull up my screen for our opening prayers, and then we'll get into the topic for our discussion today. So again, welcome everybody. Let's get started with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Radhe Radhe. Again, a very warm welcome. So let's get started. Since we closed chapter 3, we are going to recite this closing prayer. And then if there's any volunteer who wants to do that, maybe we'll pick one for the closing and the opening of our chapter 4. And then, like always, you are welcome to follow the first shloka. Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishnarjun Samvade Karma Yogo Nam Tritiyodhyayah. So that is the culmination of third chapter. We'll do that with the culmination of every chapter. Anybody who wants to do that? Who's
your hand? Oh, I see Ramya ji.
Yes, please go ahead, Ramya ji.
Ashutosh ji, yeah.
Maybe we'll pick two, and then two for the opening of next, and then the shloka itself. And then those who didn't get a chance, let's make sure everybody gets a chance. Yes, please go ahead.
Ashutosh ji, please go ahead. Yeah.
Iti Srimad Gitasu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Karma Yogo Nam Tritiya Adhyayah.
Very nice. Thank you, Ashutosh ji. Radhe Radhe. Okay, maybe we'll pick one more participant.
Yes, Ramya ji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead. Ramya ji.
You'd have to unmute yourself.
We can't hear you, Ramya ji.
Okay, let's take.
Yeah, we can move on to Sumesh ji.
Sure.
Yeah, Sumesh ji, please go ahead. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
श्रीमद् भागवत गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्म विद्यायां योग शास्त्रे श्री कृष्णार्जुन संवादे कर्म योगो नाम तृतीयोऽध्यायः.
Very nice,
Radhe
Sumesh ji. Radhe Radhe. So with that, we start off with chapter 4 today. I'll do that and then we'll pick up a couple of other participants as well. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Chaturthodhyayah Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yogaha. Let's pick two parts.
Riya ji, yeah, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Chaturthodhyayah Jnana Karma Sansayasha Yogaha.
Sannyasa Yoga. Thank you so much. All right, we'll pick one more and then we'll get started.
Akshata ji, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Chaturthodhyayah Gnana Karma Sannyasa Yogaha.
Very nice. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Thank you very much. Let's
Yeah,
move on.
Neetu ji, please go ahead.
Okay, let's pick maybe one more.
Yeah, Neetu ji. Yes. Hello?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
We can
Okay,
hear.
yeah, sorry, thank you. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Chaturtho Adhyayah Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yogaha. Thank you.
Very nice. So with this auspicious start to 4th chapter, let's get started. Now, those of you who didn't get a chance, you are welcome to follow this one. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanaham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manurikshva Kave Bravi. All right. Let's pick maybe few and then we'll get started.
Shyam ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Imam Vivaste Yogam Proktavan Tamam Vyayam Vasvan Manve Praha Manurikshuvakve Bhavrit. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe, Shanchi, do we have anybody else?
Ragi ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivsvate Yogam Proktavan Hamvayam Vivusvan Manve Praha Manur Ikshvakave Bravit.
Very nice. Thank you, Praghi ji. Anybody else who wants to do that? It's Proktavan Aham Avyayam. Anybody else? Maybe we'll pick one more and then we'll get started.
Yeah, Riya ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Riya ji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe, Riya ji.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manur Ikshvakave Brave.
Very nice.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Where are you joining us from?
I'm from Bangalore.
Bangalore. Okay. I think you've spoken before as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So let's get started. chapter 4, verse 1 then. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna said, Imam, this, Vivaswate, to the Sun God, Yogam, the science of Yoga, Proktavan, taught, Aham, I, Avyayam, eternal, Vivaswan, Sun God, Manave, to Manu, the original progenitor of humankind. Praha told Manu, Ish, Ikshvakhave to Ikshvaku, the first king of the solar dynasty, Abravit instructed. So short translation for this shloka goes like, the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna said, I taught this eternal science. You can just focus on the words here. This is an eternal science of yoga to the sun god, Vivaswan. So the sun god name is Vivaswan, who passed it on to Manu, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. Ikshvaku is follows the lineage of Lord Ram. I was born into the same dynasty. So we will get into that, but this science was taught, if you look at it, started with the sun god Vivaswan, and then to Manu, and then Manu to Ikshvaku, and that's where it continues. And then for us, for our benefit, Vedvyas ji actually documented it and present, that's how we are reading it today. Now, what is this knowledge and how does it gets passed on from generation to generation is what we are going to. First, we'll try to understand the concept of what are the different means of gaining the knowledge. So we'll do a little bit of tilling of the ground today, and then we'll see how far we can get today before we get into, some of the concepts that Lord Krishna is touching upon here. So let's get started. So knowledge, if you look at it, knowledge, right? It is the thing in life, right? All the times we are absorbing knowledge through different means. And even if you look at the hierarchy of this creation, if you remember that big chart that I'm going to pull up anyways, but let's first understand the knowledge, it enhances our living experience and it enriches our life. And anything that we want to attain in life, knowledge is needed, right? That is how important knowledge is. And one nugget of knowledge, or one piece of knowledge has a power to transform our lives. Right? One piece of knowledge that there's no happiness in this world, isn't God, can change the whole trajectory of somebody's life. One piece of knowledge that if you do Bhujangasana, you can actually proactively tackle the back pain, can change somebody's life. One piece of knowledge that, what is the purpose of life and what we should actually be doing can actually start making, people can start making a lot of changes in life. So one piece of knowledge can really has the power to transform our lives. And if you look at the knowledge itself, how we acquire knowledge, let's look at, the humans. For us, we have, if you look at this chart, we have Panch Gyanendriyas, right? The senses that we spoke about that they go after the sense objects, right? We was talking about senses, how those are 5 horses that we have been talking about. But with great threat comes great opportunity as well, because the same senses enable us to acquire knowledge as well. We see things, then we learn a lot of things by observing, then we contemplate upon it. So all the 5 senses plus mind, then we hear things, when we talk, the power of oration, when that starts getting embedded in our mind, something that we repeatedly talk. So all the senses actually are a means for us to gain knowledge as well. And if you look at it, even from a scriptural perspective, the knowledge, right? Different branches of knowledge that we talk about, moksha, nirvana, enlightenment. One side of knowledge is that, like if you look at the Gyanis or people who follow different path, they go that even progression is made through acquisition of knowledge only. And the other aspect of it is the devotion, the parabhakti that we talk about, the path of devotion. Again, that is also enriched, or the foundation is laid for that through knowledge only. First of all, we have to appreciate what we are doing, why we are doing. Then it translates into faith. And then we spoke about that, right? Gyan jane bina hoena partiti, partiti bina hoena priti. So even if we have to inculcate or develop love for God, we would need faith for that. And we would have faith only when we have knowledge about something. If you don't have knowledge about something, then to develop faith is not. And that is something Tulsidas ji had said in Ramayana. Okay. So even for Parabhakti, 50% of the battle is on theory, getting the Tattva Gyan or the knowledge pakka, solid. And remaining 50 is obviously practice and developing love for God. But the more knowledge we get about something, it's like if we have, we hit a jackpot, or if we have ₹1,000,000, we automatically develop some kind of an affinity towards it and we feel good about it, right? It has a power to make our life comfortable. But if you think about God, who is God actually? Who's the source of all energy? Money is just one of his many energies or many opulences that he possesses. What power God has to transform our souls when we truly start appreciating it, we'll automatically fall in love, right? That faith, surrender, all the big concepts that we are talking about will automatically follow. But what will be the stepping stone towards that? That will be knowledge, understanding about who God is. What power God has to transform our lives, or when we start tapping into divine, start re-establishing, or the relationship that we have forgotten, when we reclaim that, and how much we stand to gain out of that. So it's all starts with knowledge. So acquisition of knowledge can happen in two ways. Okay, the first one is the ascending process. Now, proper knowledge, let's talk about it, the two ways to acquire knowledge. Now, the ascending process is a process in which, through our own means, like our curriculum, when we study in school, we go from kindergarten, pre-kindergarten to first standard, to second standard, to third standard. And based on our limited capacity, intellectual and otherwise, we reach out and learn more and more and more. And that is the basis of modern science as well. We'll see how. So the premise there is that as we break more frontiers of knowledge, we gain more understanding about that subject. So now we are approaching this topic of acquiring knowledge through our means, right? The more, like I said, some barriers we break with regards to our understanding, the more understanding we acquire. However, this process has many deficiencies, as we would see, right? So something that is thought of as a truth in one age gets disapproved in another age, as we'll look at it through some examples as well. Now, this is actually the deficiency of science. So if we have somebody who's kids or somebody, they challenge them that science is the thing, then I think we will have some of those arguments presented as to why we think it is a deficient process. Okay, we'll go through it very systematically, logically around it. Why this is actually something which requires a lot of leap of faith. Science requires a bigger leap of faith than spirituality. So this is an ascending process, as we spoke about. And the other aspect of it is that this knowledge is built incrementally over time. You don't have access to the perfect knowledge. You are just building it and hoping that as you keep on peeling the layers, one day you will arrive at the absolute truth. That is the hope in this process. And this process, it relies on direct perception, and it doesn't. And the biggest limitation of this science is, in fact, it is said dvaya vidya. Our scriptures say that material science and spiritual science both are bona fide branches of science. Both are bona fide. It's not that only one science is needed, or one science is true, bona fide, and other is, we can simply discard it. Both are bona fide, both are needed. While material science is needed to understand the laws of nature, to make our life comfortable, the spiritual science is needed to provide answers to the afflictions ailing humans since time eternity. Material science does not have answers for that. The material science is limited in the sense that it can only make our life comfortable. Okay, and it can help us understand the laws of nature. So if there are laws, it's like if you have a painting, there has to be a painter. If there is a creation, there has to be a creator. And if there are laws, there has to be a lawmaker. If some of you have studied engineering, you would know there are so many laws, laws of thermodynamics, laws of gravity, laws of optics. And who designed those laws? Who's the lawmaker actually? So Swamiji, he was telling that, when he used to study his engineering, so he said, rather than studying the laws, why not study the lawmaker? That is even more, satisfying. So anyways, so this knowledge that we're talking about, which is gained through ascending process, has some limitations, and it does not answer questions to the afflictions ailing humans. Can somebody give us a technology today for all the scientific advancements that we have made? How do we remove evil from human heart? Do we have that technology? We don't have it. No matter which college, elite college you go to, Ivy League college you go to, that technology is just not available. Right? So material science on one hand is needed, and on the other hand, spiritual science is even more required for us to understand the bigger questions or the bigger pursuits of life, especially when we are born as humans. So we're talking about ascending, and to quote what Albert Einstein said, he said, the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. And that is somebody who's the stature of Albert Einstein who said that, not some ordinary scientist or a pseudo intellectual. So when some of the scientists, they reach the zenith or the peak of their powers, it automatically brings humility in them to understand that this whole creation or the laws governing this creation have much more to it what humans can perceive. So that humility is a natural predisposition that they get just because they have the ability to go so deep, right? Even and one of the scientists had said, if you think deep enough, science will compel you to believe in God. And science is a baby steps toward understanding the ultimate truth. Okay. So if the ultimate truth is like a sea beach, science is just a small particle of sand. That much advancement it has made so far. Just think of it. We spoke about this concept of multiverses, right? In Krishna Leela, when Brahmaji was called upon, not called upon, but Brahmaji goes to meet Lord Krishna, and the doorkeeper, he stops him there. So when he stops him, who are you? He asks him. He said, you can tell Krishna that Brahmaji has come. So when he goes to Lord Krishna questions him back. He said, ask him which Brahmaji. So Brahmaji used to think he's the only Brahmaji. And then Krishna, to put things in perspective, calls upon all the Brahmajis. So our Brahmaji is called Chaturmukhi Brahmaji. So Chaturmukhi Brahmaji's universe, if you think about it, that entire Milky Way, we don't even know our solar system, right? And then you have, I don't know how many million suns out there in this universe. So the Milky Way, our Earth or our solar system, is a speck of dust in that entire Milky Way. And that is what our Chaturmukhi Brahmaji is the governor of, the creator of. And similarly, you have 10-headed Brahmas, 20-headed, 100-headed, million-headed, trillion-headed, infinite-headed. So many Brahmajis come. So you can only imagine the expanse of universe. So we have absolutely no way. So that's why I'm saying science is just a baby step in understanding the truth. And if somebody claims that there is no God, right? People come and say there is no God. Think how much leap of faith they are taking. For us to conclusively say there is no God, we have to know pretty much everything out in this universe or multiverses, right? If there is even one thing that science doesn't know or we don't know, we know that there are tons of things we don't know, science doesn't know. But let's say there is one thing that science is not able to know in this universe, that could be God. So for somebody to so confidently and conclusively say there is no God, they need to know everything out in this universe. Can anybody claim that? So whichever person who claims to have a lot of scientific temperament, who can think logically, rationally, if they really think about this question, they're taking a big leap of faith. So is it okay to put faith in something that we don't know, something as abstract as this? Or is it better to put faith in something which our scriptures are telling, which are time-tested principles? The choice is ours, right? Which is a more intelligent faith. Right? So anyways, This is the first process, ascending process. Like I explained, the more frontiers of knowledge, as they are broken, the more understanding we get. And it has its own limitations. We'll see it through some examples of science, how it has progressed over the years. So it all started with the Greek concept of smallest indivisible particle as atom. So when I was studying, the first lesson we studied was atom was indivisible. And then this principle also came along. I mean, these were already discovered, but then they would teach you in increments, right? So started with atom as indivisible, but then from journal science to physics, when we went, or chemistry, it started getting a lot more nuanced and subtler. And that's where the Rutherford in 19th century, he disapproved this concept. He said, no, atoms are not indivisible. He bombarded an atom with alpha particles and discovered that actually atoms have 99.9, it is empty space. So think of it, our body, which is made up of atoms, 99.9 is an empty space. And then he came up with a model. He said that, atoms have nucleus, and then neutrons, protons are going around those, they are orbiting it, and that became a truth for humankind. So first truth was atom is indivisible. So any student of science would say this is what the truth is. However, in a matter of few years, that was disapproved, and now they said, no, by the way, atom has neutrons and protons around it as well. However, that was not the end of the story. Then the Neil Bohr came in 20. He said that electron and neutron, that's our idea of solid particles, but then there is a distribution of probability of mass at a particular point. So he brought in this theory, quantum theory, where all the previous concepts of mass, they were disapproved, and now they said particle becomes a particle just because there's an observer. So there's an observer, there's a thing that is being observed, there's an object, and then there's a process of the observing. And in the absence of process of observing, the object itself doesn't exist. So then the quantum theory came about. And because of that, Einstein, he said that he admitted that as we look at the new developments in physics, he said that he admitted that it's almost like the very foundation of it is shaken up, and somebody is actually pulling there's absolutely no way, it's pulling apart with nothing to fall upon. So point here being that these theories, they keep on getting revised. Even if you remember, when you would solve theorems in maths, it would start with an assumption. Let us assume this. You start with an hypothesis and then do an experiment, right? You proceed with that, and then either it is proved or disapproved. So you start with that and try to prove it. So it's all based on assumption. And then, as you, like I said, we keep on breaking the frontiers of knowledge, things keep on getting revised. That elusive search for God particle is still going on. It is not perfect science. It is just what becomes truth at given point in time is limited by how much we can truly understand with the constraint of material apparatus and faculties that we have. So that is the limitation of science. Now let's look at the other process. We spoke about the ascending process. Now let's talk about the descending process. Ascending is going ground up. Descending is top down. Okay, something that comes directly from the top and get cascaded to the downer levels below rather. So now this is based on scriptural knowledge, which scriptures, we said, they are not written by any human. The Vedas, they are the manuals for life. They manifest as soon as the creation comes about. Every time the creation comes about, after the pralay cycle that happens, the Vedas also manifest. And that knowledge gets reiterated by multiple saints. So if you look at, there is a running theme in all the saints who come, they reiterate the same knowledge from Vedas. It's not that one saint is saying something, the other no. The central theme remains the same. And then the principles are time tested. It's not that they keep on getting revised, that one, you have a truth and then that truth gets revised and then the truth is no longer a truth. That doesn't happen. It's like once said, always remains. And it is called the perfect knowledge, and it's a manual for human life. Let's look at some of the other aspects of it. So like we said, the difference is the ascending, it keeps on getting corrected over time. So the truth, which is a truth, may not be the truth after 200 or 300 years. However, in ascending process, descending process, truth is consistent. Once a truth, always a truth. There's no revisions at all. in that. So the smarter way of going about acquiring knowledge is to go with the bona fide knowledge of scriptures, because our time is limited, right? Um, if if we were to say that only when science will reach a particular point, which hopefully will happen in I don't know how many years, that too up to a certain limit, and that's the only way for us to learn, then it's not a very smart strategy. It can take, I don't know how many years, and we don't have the luxury of time, unfortunately, with us. So that's why the descending process is being spoken about. This is a perfect source of knowledge. You just need to tap into it without any labor. It's like knowledge is already available and you have access to knowledge. Right? It's not, we can't read it. I mean, we'll see how we can get it. And then even in material world, if you look at it, the same process is followed. How is it followed? Because when we go to our school, it's a descending process in that case. An English teacher or a Sanskrit teacher or a Hindi teacher or a science teacher or a maths teacher, they have collected all the knowledge, material knowledge that needs to be known at the level where we are in our school. And then we simply receive it from them. They tell us and we don't question them. We just go by what they are telling us, right? 1 + 1 is 2. KNIFI is knife, not knife. We go by what they are telling us, and we are receiving knowledge through descending process, even in this material world. And Vedas tell us that it is to our advantage only if you receive knowledge through a descending process. The only condition is that the source of knowledge needs to be perfect. Now, if you start subscribing to descending knowledge to a wrong authority or a wrong source of knowledge, then it can be counterproductive. And Vedas are known to be the perfect source in every sense. So that is called descending process. Now let's go a little further into this process and look at 3 types of pramans. So we need proof, right? This discussion comes up, I need proof for everything. So let's look at what are the 3 kinds of pramans. Praman is a Hindi word for, or a Sanskrit word for proof, evidence. The first one is called Pratyaksh Praman. Pratyaksh means something which is visible, or which is something which can be perceived by our senses. That is limited by our sensory perception, as you can see. So the knowledge is extremely clear, but its scope gets very limited. For example, you may be walking in night and you may mistake a rope for a snake. Why? Because it is limited with our direct perception, direct sensory perception. So it has its limitation. Pratyaksh Praman has its limitation. Similarly, if you look at the stick, if you put it in water or your finger, you will see it bent. Does it mean it's truly bent? No. There are laws of physics, right? Refraction and those kind of laws which dictate the fact that it looks bent. Now, if you say I'm going to rely on things that I can only perceive and see, is it a right way of understanding something? As a lot of growing up teenagers would like you to believe or say, there's a fallacy there. You cannot really go by what you can see alone. Another example, if you look at the range, the hertz range in which human ears can hear, I think it goes from ultrasonic all the way up to ultrasonic. I think ultrasonic is probably less than 20 hertz and ultrasonic is more than 20,000 hertz or something like that. But then we don't have that ability. We can operate only within a certain range. Dogs have an ability, a lot of animals, they have an ability to hear those sounds. We don't have. And that is why you see some of the animals, they get restless when, certain vibrations are picked up, if it's going to be an earthquake or something like that. We don't have those abilities. Animals have that. So do we say if we don't hear something, that sound doesn't exist? That is also not the right way of getting knowledge. So if we rely purely on Pratyaksh Praman, then that is not a right way or a perfect way of getting knowledge. Marxists say that we are willing to believe in God if we could dissect him in a lab and see it, in a lab with my eyes. How can you get a lab which can dissect God? Because God is known as Mahato Mahan and Anuanyan, I think, bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest. So you can't even see him under a microscope, and you cannot build a lab large enough to actually get him inside the lab if you were to do that. So Pratyaksh Praman which we think is the way to gain knowledge is very, very limited. You can gain knowledge from it in a very, very limited scope. I hope that concept is clear. That is the first way of getting knowledge, which is limited by our sensory perceptions. The second way of gaining knowledge is called Anuman Praman. As the word itself suggests, Anuman means you are driving some kind of a deduction, inference. Anuman, right? Some kind of an inference, logical inference. So it is not a direct perception, it is a derived knowledge. It's a two-step, I mean, not two-step process, the one step, but it's not a direct knowledge, it's a derived knowledge. And it's through logic and argumentation. Okay, yeah. So it follows logic basically. This is also not a foolproof method. I'll tell you how. And it can lead you to make some absurd conclusions as well, based on the intellectual cap that we all have. So for example, if there is smoke, there is fire. So if we see smoke coming out of a mountain, we'll say it is fire. You know, that mountain is on fire. Now, it could be mist or fog also, right? But in some cases, it is a right way of gaining knowledge as well. For example, if you see light, but you are not able to see sun, but you can reliably derive this knowledge that sun is there, but it is behind the clouds, because you are able to see light. So you can say, no, there is sun. So this Anuman Praman is a way to gain knowledge as well. But like I explained, it could actually lead us to some absurd conclusions as well, because it is also not perfect. Then what choice do we have if we don't have a perfect way of gaining any knowledge at all? Luckily, we do have a choice. And the third one is Shruti Praman, oral tradition. It is called verbal testimony coming from a bona fide source through oral tradition. For example, the Vedas, Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, they are the perfect source of knowledge and without any limitations whatsoever. And they have actually come to us through Shruti Praman, oral tradition. It sounds a little, see, for us, we don't have that intellectual capacity to read, understand, and implement Gita within 3 or 4 hours, right? And understand to an extent that go and fight battle as well. We don't have that capacity. In Kali Yuga, that is but to be expected, because our memories are weak. We are physically not as strong as some of the sages and people in earlier times used to be. So it seems a little offbeat, you know, thinking that how can somebody pass on knowledge through oral tradition and then there is no transmission loss and somebody will actually hear it, understand it. That is how it used to be. And when it comes through sages, it's a foolproof method. It's like you capture the knowledge with a photographic memory, with a proper understanding, and then you pass it on to the next disciple. And then to our benefit, God takes avatar. Like if you look at Vedavyas, he's also one type of God's avatar. They come from time to time to make sure that knowledge, whenever it is adulterated, that chain is restored. So that knowledge, the sanctity of that knowledge is preserved. That is how, and that is the Bhagavad Gita that we are reading as well. If you pick up any shloka, any piece of knowledge from our scriptures, if you think deeply about it, you will see, if you start implementing that piece of knowledge, like I said, even one piece of knowledge has the power to transform our lives. You piece it and you can realize it that, you know, this is a time proven truth. It is not descended from an ordinary human being based on his experiences alone. It is something divine. And this knowledge, Bhagavad Gita knowledge, is called sentient knowledge. It's not jada knowledge. It is sentient. So when we recite it, it's very powerful. When we think over it, it gives its effect. When we talk about it, discuss like we do in our satsang every day, it leaves its impact as well. It is called sentient knowledge. It is divine. It is not like an ordinary book written by somebody, because it's a sentient knowledge. So that is why how special this knowledge is, which is coming from a bona fide source. And this comes through Shruti Praman, because the other two have their own limitations. So science relies on the above two. while the scriptures, the descending knowledge, comes directly from Shabda Praman. That, let's move on and look at a few other things as well. So when we talk about Vedas, like we said, this is passed on. It's not an ordinary book. Vedas are called Aparushaya. That means they were not written by any human being. And it is another name for Vedas is Shruti, or knowledge that came through the ear. And through hearing tradition is how it gets passed from generation to generation. And 5,000 years ago, like I said, this Bhagavad Gita, Ved Vyas, he himself descended. He was a descension of God. We spoke about different avatars, the different categories of avatars that God takes, and Ved Vyas was also one of them. And he wrote it down for the benefit of humankind. And it's only because of that, courtesy him, that we are able to read this wonderful scripture today, and which is so beautifully translated by Swamiji for us. And these Vedas are the reference point for them, and they've said Bhutam Bhavyam Bhavishyan Cha Sarvan Vedat Prasidhyati. That means any spiritual principle that we talk about, if you, let's say somebody comes and start giving some lecture on something, the litmus test that it needs to be subjected to is that, is it coming from the authority of the Vedas or not? If yes, then yes, it is a bona fide concept. And if not, there is a scope for doubt. It's a very simple test. So if somebody comes and starts saying something, it might be limited by their own experience. That person might be an elevated soul. So with all due respect with that, we still cannot take it as a truth, because it still needs validation or vetting through Vedas. That is the power of Vedas here. And so then there's a scope for doubt. So that brings us to an interesting question around Buddhism as well. Buddha never quoted Vedas. So I asked this question to Swamiji, can we attain God through Buddhism? Because it doesn't talk about surrender to God at all. So he said, yeah, Buddha was a special case himself, right? So he was avatar of Vishnu himself, Siddharth. I think he's 12th, or I don't know the exact number of avatar of Buddha. But other than that, you would have to surrender to God eventually. So maybe when you reach the peak and then you come across a saint, they'll tell you this is where you need to go. So, but without surrender, without bringing God into the mix, you really can't realize God. You can conquer Maya up to a certain level, like we spoke about this concept in our previous sessions. There are two aspects to Maya: the Vidya Maya and the Vidya Maya. The Avidya Maya aspect of it can be conquered by our self-effort, but the Vidya Maya aspect of it cannot be conquered. So, first of all, the knowledge that we gain has to be vetted through scriptures. So we need some references for that. It has to come in accordance with our scriptural injunctions. It's not like I feel so, that's why I'm telling you so. And secondly, we have to bring God into the mix, because that's what our scriptures tell us as well. If we have to perfect we have to reach the ultimate goal. Without bringing God into the mix, we really can't conquer God's energy. It's not like it's available to us on a platter. If we do certain practice, we will attain God. Because if that was the case, that would become price of God realization. You do so many things, you do this practice, and then you will attain God. That becomes the price of God realization, which is not possible. It is priceless, and it can happen only with God's grace. And God's grace comes only when you are perfectly surrendered. And you can become perfectly surrendered when you bring God into the mix. Some people call it Ishvara, right? So without bringing God into the mix, it's not possible. And Vedas are the reference point for us. So sooner or later, we have to get into that, no matter what path we follow, whichever tradition we follow, the buck will stop at Vedas, because that will tell you the principles that are needed beyond a certain point to actually perfect your devotion and complete this process of God realization, to put it simply. All right, with that, now we get into some of the discussion today, because science, this question keeps popping up. That's scientifically, they say it's all hocus pocus. So let's have a bit of a discussion that first of all, let's talk about the category, Praman science falls into. We touched upon that briefly anyways. But do you agree that science is based on logic while spirituality is hocus pocus? Have you come across this argument? And if yes, have you been able to tackle it to the satisfaction of the person who posed that question? And if yes, What made you tackle it satisfactorily? And if no, then what is it that constrains us whenever this logic is presented to us by somebody with a scientific temperament or from our growing up kids or teenagers? They like to challenge on this thought process, right? So I would like to hear from some participants and get this discussion going. Yes, Shyamji, I can see your hand.
Yes, Shyamji, please go ahead. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, let me share again. Yes.
One small doubt question I have, as if Vedas is the only knowledge as per us, is it believed worldwide, or if whatever is said in Vedas is true as it is, then why do you say that Ramayana and Mahabharata were mythological series? I do not know. I always have a doubt in my mind. Maybe I'm right or wrong. I do not know. How does one feel?
Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, all of these are it's all part of our Vedic literature only. Now, Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are called mythological by us. That word itself is incorrect. If you look at it from a scriptural standpoint, they are called Itihas Puran, historical Puran. So they're not mythological. They are real events that happened. It is called Itihas Puran. I don't know where along the term that came mythological and we think it's myth. It's not. It is Itihas Puran.
Right. Why do you put mythological series, mythological? Why does it, how does it do it? What come into picture then? Who's?
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting who brought in that wrong. Britishers did or somebody else did. It's not mythological. It is Itihas Puran. If you look at it from a Vedic standpoint, they are called Itihas Puran. They are part of Puranas. They're not mythological thing. They are real events that happened 5,000 years ago, Mahabharata, and in Treta, Ramayana. Okay.
So whatever is,
yes,
Vedas is perfect, pure, and as it is.
As it is.
That's for sure.
Yes, as it is. It is descended down to us through oral tradition. God has its own way of maintaining that chain. Okay, so that knowledge will, just think of it. If there is a science that exists between humans and God, okay, then he has to have a manual around that as well. It's like a product. If you create a product, you have to have a product manual. And because if there is no manual, that it becomes an unfair game. You have given us a product to play around with, but we don't have a manual, so that it becomes an unfair game. So God will make sure this never becomes an unfair game. You will always have this knowledge available, and you will always have enough teachers around to make that knowledge accessible to you as well. And that is what we're going to discuss. Lord Krishna is saying, he's going to tell that, he keeps on re-establishing this chain, and he's re-establishing again now with Arjun, because the knowledge was getting dissipated along the way. So he has his ways to maintain that from time to time. So they are perfect. I think you had a follow-up question on that as well. Let's continue with the discussion. Unless, of course, you had a follow-up question on that. But yeah, it is a perfect knowledge.
So whatever science or maths say, logically, illogically, the science have proven so far in the entire tenure is one thing. But whatever is there in Vedas or scriptures, whether proved or not proved, it is what it is. Is that so?
It will take time for science to reach that. If our Vedas say that plants have life, they have life. Science, it took science a long time to figure it out. If our Vedas say Bhugol, Earth is goal, it took science a lot of time to figure it out. So yeah, so Swamiji explains it very nicely. He said it should not be contradictory. If actually science uses Vedic truths, in fact, in Germany and all, they have started reading Sanskrit because they understand the power of Upanishads. Then science will accelerate even further quickly because they understand this is the truth they need to reach. Because now science is adopting different approach. It will take them time. If you are, alive, or if you are reborn and lucky enough, maybe we'll see some more truths coming out where they say, hey, by the way, what scripture said was right. It's just a matter of time. Now, do we wait for science to discover it before we believe in it, or do we simply take it? It's our choice.
So I can really boast and say that whatever I have gone through Vedas is the thing.
Yes, without doubt, fearlessly, no doubts whatsoever.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Vedas are Vedas, but we need to have that access through a proper master. We cannot simply start saying that. So when we listen it through a proper master, that becomes a stamp of authority on it. That's it. That truth is truth. See, the concepts that we are discussing in Bhagavad Gita, we are talking about mind, intellect. We are talking how we think. Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever seen who can tell you how your mind operates? That is the power of our scriptures. Somebody is telling how your mind works, what you think, what are the pitfalls, what is the problem that you're having, the kind of things you are looking after, seeking happiness. You will not get happiness. So confidently they are telling us. Can somebody come and tell you, no, I have attained happiness? No, you can reject it completely. Vedas are telling not possible. So that is the power of our scriptures.
Thank you so much. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Let's hear from other participants.
Well explained, Nitinji. Seema ji wanted to say about Buddha was Vishnu's 9th avatar. I think when we were discussing about Buddha's avatar.
Yeah, I think 12th. I'll say 12 minus 3 avatar. Okay, correction.
She also mentioned that he was a scholar of Vedas, which his father, King Sudhodan, provided the gurus at his place.
Yeah. So all of these avatars, they are the scholars of Vedas. What they reveal is a function of a lot of factors, right? The place, the time, the audience, and a lot of stuff. So all of them are well versed in Vedas. Obviously, they have access to the perfect knowledge, right?
Yes. Thank you, Seema ji, for that. And Pragya ji has mentioned, those who don't believe in it call it mythological. I think this is in context of
mythological.
Mythological stories that we want. Mahabharata
it's
and
not
Ramayana.
A correct word, I know. Mythological. Yes. We ourselves call that. That is the irony. It's not mythological. It is called Itihas Puran. Next time somebody says, you say it's history. Okay, not mythological.
Yeah, definitely. She has mentioned Swami said that very fact that these knowledge is relevant till today is a testimony to the fact that these knowledge is eternal. Like many believe that God is Nirgun, not Sagun.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very deeper conversation. We have had this conversation in the past. We'll bring it up again. God is both Nirgun and Sagun. Let's hear from other participants as well.
Yes. Manoranjan ji, thank you for waiting. Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead. Yes. Are you able to unmute yourself? Please go ahead.
I think there's some problem. We can.
Yes.
Audible now?
Yes,
you are. Yeah.
Radhe Radhe and Namaskaram to all the participants. Indeed, a nice and interactive session. To this discussion about this, the scientific knowledge and spiritual knowledge, what I understand is, from my limited knowledge, that these two things are not separate at all.
Yep.
In fact, this scientific knowledge, the logical thinking is a part and parcel, is a subset of the entire vicinity of knowledge we have. And as you have well said, that the Vedas are known as Aparishya. When the God has created this universe, he established Vedas for the benefit of the pranis and the mankind. So therefore the knowledge itself is there. The science, by the way of science, by the way of logical thinking, we are actually discovering there are many things yet science has to establish.
Yes.
Science has till date science has not established that whether we have a similar planet like Earth elsewhere. The science has not been able to establish the theory of the existence of the universe, the sustenance of the universe, or the beginning of the universe. But if you go to Vedas, you go to scriptures, these are well versed and recorded theories, aspects about the creation of the universe, the sustenance of the universe, and the destruction of the universe. Thank you very much.
Beautiful point, Manoranjanji. Very true. If you go to Bhagavatam, you'll be amazed to see it even talks about the different kind of people that will inhabit this earth, and a lot of minute details around that as well. Brahmanandavalli talks about creation, all the elements, how they come into existence, and it goes into big details. and then the whole cycle that the highest unit of time known to mankind, which is Kalp, 1 day of Brahma. It goes to greater details. You'll be pretty amazed to that. So all that knowledge is documented, and even if you just attempt to read it with faith, you will understand it. It's not something that an ordinary person or an author, a best-selling author, can write. Okay, they are divine. They are divine. You'll be able to, even reading Bhagavad Gita, it's not an ordinary book, right? When we look at these shlokas, how beautiful, how deep, how profound these shlokas are, and so clearly it is told, how the mechanics of our thought process and what we need to do, where we are making mistakes, how our senses are going to lead us astray, what is the path towards it. Everything is so explained so beautifully. It's not a work of a human. I mean, if you start reading it, you will start appreciating the fact that we are reading something which is very, very special.
Yes, agreed. Nitinji, Reemaji has asked, where are the Upanishads and the Vedas? Are they available for someone to read?
I think it's all there in the printing press, but I would strongly recommend to find a tutor for that. It's like you're trying to attempt to read something which is divine, and it will confuse you. So apparent contradictions, they need to be reconciled by a proper guru, and it's not a subject that we can master on our own. If you pick up a physics book, Resnick Halliday, and try to go through some of those principles, you'll get utterly confused. And we are talking about divine knowledge here. So you need to find a good master, person who has understood, who has seen the truth. We said Shrotriya Brahmanist, and then that knowledge can be presented to you in a manner which is palatable and understandable. If you try to read it on your own, one, lifetime is not good enough. And secondly, supposing we read it as well, to understand it and reconcile the apparent contradictions that you may come across is next to impossible, because it is divine, and we will be using our material intellect around that. So they are available. We could look it up. I think everything is in printing press now, but it's not a subject that we can master on our own. That's a caveat around that.
Yeah. Thank you, Nitinji. Thanks everyone for waiting. Sumeshji, please go ahead.
Yes, Sumeshji.
Yes.
And you can put the attendance tracker in the meantime, feedback tracker for everybody to fill in.
Nitinji.
Radhe Radhe, Sumeshji.
The sun god means Surya Devta.
Surya Devta, Vivaswan, yeah.
And first Veda knower is God, and then Brahma, and then Manu or Surya Devta.
Yeah, Lord Krishna is going to talk about it, and Arjun is going to ask a very logical question that, how do I know that you actually recited or gave this message even before, because you are standing right in front of me, and Lord Krishna is going to explain how he goes about this.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
Ikshvaku, some word, please tell me.
Ikshvaku, I think, is from the solar dynasty. So that whole dynasty where Lord Ram came, I think Ikshvaku it belongs to that. So we'll talk a little bit more about it when we get into that discussion of that shloka tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have shared the link for feedback tracker. Please, whenever you get chance, please go ahead and fill in your feedback, comments, your questions. Please, the link is in the chat.
Yeah, and you can put in your comments there as well. The ones that you probably put it on chat, because you may not be able to read all, given the time constraint that we have. Yes, let's hear from other participants.
Yeah. Thank you for waiting, Padmaji. Please go ahead, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Padmaji.
I just want to put some points out there, right? If you have somebody around you, maybe a child, maybe a student, maybe somebody who is not yet willing to accept spirituality, not yet willing to accept everything that we are saying, that everything, science is part of spiritual, and everything is coming from that. So there are a couple things that we can actually present to them. We might not be able to convince them, but we might be able to present to them so that they can think for themselves, and logically they can use their own logic. Because if somebody is really inclined to think logically, they can use the same logic also, but then take the logic, and actually eventually they'll come to accept that spirituality exists. So certain things that we can say to them is, anything, even climate model, right? Anything in scientific thing, it is a theory, and there is a model, and there is a theory. So unless a new theory comes into the picture, the old theory still is applicable, and some new evidence comes into the picture, that old theory is still acceptable. And then there is an openness that something else will come up. That is the possibility of the science, right? That is the open mind, open thing, that it is always a possibility that something else might come into the picture as an evidence to support the logic, and that acceptance of the theory can always change. And even scientists know that, right? Even scientists also know that there is something else which might come their way, a new information and new evidence, and something can change. Nothing is written in stone. So that is number one thing. So the difference between science and the spirituality is the fact and the faith, right? Science is based on the facts, and then spirituality is based on the faith. And also,
I think science is based on faith as well. That's what I said. So yeah,
right. Spiritually, right. If you're spiritual, you already know that science is also faith-based, right? Two other things that I want to say is, right, science is giving you the practical application of living, how to live and how to understand everything which is happening around us, but it really doesn't give you something to experience things, right? You are experiencing certain things that you can only experience through spirituality. It doesn't matter how much science you acquire, it doesn't give you the tools to experience it. It will help you understand it, but not actually help you experience, like for example, emotions, right? So that is the basic fundamental difference between living and life, right? How to live, how to understand what is happening around you, science will give you that basic fundamental understanding, but it doesn't actually give you something where you can experience emotions, where you can experience something. So science hasn't gotten that far. So these are some things that we can also contemplate on. Let's say, okay, we can understand the things which are happening around us, but how do you experience things around us is only through something that you can really experience, like God, right? His presence of God and what he does for us. So that experience piece is when you question somebody, it opens their mind to think about, yes, there must be something which is bigger than ourselves that is helping us understand, experience what we are actually going through, like emotions and love and empathy and compassion and all that stuff.
Yep. Great point. That's true. Experience is something that science will not have answers to, for sure. I saw that Elon Musk is trying to, invest in, people are billionaires now. They're trying to invest in ventures that can help them live longer. So that's kind of an interesting pursuit. We'll see where it ends up with. But yeah, material science is there. Like I said, it's again a bona fide science, but it has a limiting impact on our life. It can make our life comfortable, but nothing beyond that. The questions that life poses, and the question when it comes to the afflictions that we have to encounter in our lives, science doesn't have answers for that, for sure. Okay, quite a few other hands. Let's hear from other participants as well.
Yeah, Sudhakarji, please go ahead.
And after that,
please
we can make some announcements before we can continue with the remaining participants.
Radhe Radhe. It was a nice session actually, and it is, I think, very important session for at least the current generation of the students, because they don't believe anything. Yep. So I thought to just share my thoughts on that one. So yes, definitely, my thoughts on this is knowledge is the truth actually. It is there, whether we call scientific knowledge or spiritual knowledge or biological knowledge or physical knowledge. That's all our interpretation. So what I would try to say is, like human beings, we are in the mode of the three gunas. So I would say that scientific knowledge is in the guna of the tamas. It is just in the passion. It's trying to establish that one. This is one point I would like to say.
Rajas, yeah.
Yeah, and for the current people, like many of us, even my children also, it is very difficult for me to convince them or explain them, because I don't have that expert or the true expert knowledge in convincing them. For example, I would like to say that the people who don't believe God are why to go and explore, which is already established. We know that this world is there, this light is there, the air is there, the five bhutas. Every religion, every human being experiences, right? So there is no point in wasting the time from where from the air has come, or what is the how the air moves. This already, that is the way of some people are working on it and wasting their time, I would say. That's what the scriptures and the God says. You have very limited time in this Kali Yuga, and you just have to surrender rather than wasting why you should surrender, what are the benefits of surrender, doing all the SWOT analysis and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And just to give a simple example, like I think Swamiji also, or many of the spiritual gurus mentioned, like for example, in 50 or 75 years back, when you say Wi-Fi or the TV, nobody believes that one, right? But today it is a fact. So that does not mean that the knowledge is there 50 years back or 70 years back, and now it is there. So it is only our own eyes, or we realize, oh, this is also, that's it.
Great point, Sudhakar. Where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Saudi, actually.
Oh yeah, Saudi. Okay, good. You were able to make, I think you're probably one of the few participants we have from Middle East at this point. So very nice. Thank you so much for your inputs and great insights. All right, Pallaviji, do we have any other participants, or you wanted to make announcements?
Yeah, we have 2 more hands raised.
Sure, let's hear from them, and then we can, or if you want to make the announcements, you can do that real quick, and then we can
the featured announcement today is about the youth mind management book club session, which is going to start soon, and the timing will be 11 a.m. CST. So more information will be provided. The links will be shared also about the classes. And if you join the WhatsApp reminder session, sorry about that, then you can get all the reminders about the classes. Apart from that, I have shared the link for JK Yoga online classes. There are a lot of free online sessions available. Do take advantage of it, and there are a lot of classes. So take a look at it. Join the WhatsApp group for reminder as well. So that's it about the announcements, and I can take some other people who have.
Hear from the remaining participants then.
Right. Some people are saying that attendance tracker is not working. So let me share again the link. Maybe I don't know why the previous link is not working. I'll go ahead and share.
Still celebrating weekend, early weekend, maybe. It stopped working, huh? Okay, you may want to send it out again and see if you are able to use it or not.
I've shared a new link. Please take a look at it.
All right, let's see.
Yeah. Hitalji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Hitalji.
Just, this is my, when I was in the middle school, I came into contact with some sage or saints, and he always explained and tell us that God gave us the birth to understand the mystery of the universe. So that was always questioning me, and that was his behind that. It must have been written in Vedas. What is exactly the universe? So that there is already mysteries there. There are plenty of mysteries we don't know anything. Even science cannot answer there as well. And I think what I understood, another point I want to make is, and I think Nitinji already made that, the Germans, they're trying to understand that Vedas deeply enough to get the completely mystery out of it and get a lot of scientific inventions out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, I think we are the one which we have published and which we know about Vedas, but we don't want to get deep into it and trying to understand that mysteries. Rather, we're just going behind the other materialistic and another mysteries over and trying to get off it. So that's it, nothing else.
True, yeah. And the reason to learn Sanskrit is just so that they can get the true import of that knowledge and nothing gets lost in translation. So yeah, it's just a matter of time before everybody wakes up to that. See, this process is very cyclical. The times that we are born in, we are seeing, our Sanatan and Dharam and all these things at the advanced stage of decay possibly, right? And some other times it might be at the peak. So this is a very cyclical process. Today you may see, US and some of the Western countries more at the peak of development, but some other times it could be China or some other country. So this is a very cyclical process. But then the fact remains, the knowledge is knowledge, right? It's not a function of the times that you are in, and perfect knowledge is perfect knowledge, no matter what times you are in. Okay, let's hear from remaining participants as well.
Yes, Aarti ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe ma'am, Radhe Radhe sir, everyone, Radhe Radhe. I just am so feeling unlucky that I joined at 9:20 due to some, reason.
I'll post the video
sir,
for it.
but, yeah.
If that
attendance
is your
chapter I'll fill up. Okay. So what I wanted to add, just one request that please in just 1 or 2 minutes summarize whatever happened. And discussion I missed. I'm so feeling very, very, unlucky.
No.
And,
what I'll do is I'll pull out the videos. I think this week we have had some good discussions. I'll try to pull out. Typically, it takes about a week before I get access. So I'll try to pull out the videos and and let you know on the chat. That way you can access and take advantage of the videos, whatever you have missed. So first 20 minutes, actually, we had darshan of Lord Krishna. That's what you missed, in case you are wondering. Just kidding. First 20 minutes, we were just talking about ascending, descending knowledge. Nothing major. We were talking about the limitations of science and how it is imperfect. And then the descending knowledge is the way to go. And we also did the initial shlokas when we close the chapter and when we open a new chapter, which I'm going to post anyway. So you can take a look at that. I think that's where we spent at least our first 10-15 minutes. So you didn't miss much.
Being a science student, I'm a postgraduate with chemistry.
Oh,
I also pondered over, sir, that Jaina's philosophy, why my father was placed in an institution like that for 15 years. Like whatever is there in the Vedas, nothing science has, tested and explored that could have contradicted that is already there.
True.
If any contradiction can any scientist or anybody can come out that can we ponder over? No, nothing like that. Like 84 lakh yoniya, yes.
It will never happen.
Why not beyond 84 lakh? Science has explored some 76 lakhs. Like in the same way, life originated from water. That is already our all 24 avatars, one after the other, has shown this transformation, how life has come to this form.
Very true.
Then Pushpak Viman, like anything can be imaginary. Why these imaginary things are not there in other scriptures or other at that point of time when the entire world were roaming like early man. At that time, we had universities. There are proofs, like one of the videos I have seen from Punarjanma that some Chinese
losing your voice, Artiji, it's fading and breaking.
The difference.
Not
if you
able to hear you. You're not able
I
to hear
can
you
hear
clearly.
something else too. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. So maybe due to internet connection. So
Yeah, but we got the gist of it. Yes, I think you gave some very nice examples, and we can explore that. But yeah, science is like, it's a baby step, and good to know you are chemistry. Maybe we can discuss organic chemistry in one of these days. Clemenson's reaction and all that good stuff, fun stuff. It used to freak me out, when I was in school. So, but yeah, good to hear from you, RTG. Great points and great insights, and I'll try to get the video for it so that whatever you missed out, you can make up for it. Let's hear from a couple of other participants and then we can call it off for today. Tomorrow we are going to continue with this discussion on 4.1. Some more insights into this shloka, because we have not really covered the content that Lord Krishna is talking about. We've just set the context for it. Let's hear from other participants.
Yeah, Rekha ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Rekha ji, Radhe Radhe. We can see Amazon.
Yeah, can't hear you, Rekha ji.
Hello, Hari Om. Actually, this is my sister's name, Rekha. My name is Sunil Krishnan. I'm calling from Chicago. And Hari Om, thank you so much. Outstanding presentation, great content. May Lord Krishna be bless you to do more such sessions and share the knowledge base.
Thank
I
you.
volunteer and serve close to about 200 youth in the state of Wisconsin and Chicago, Hindu youth, my charter in the next 2 years. And the goal is to touch Gita to 2,000 children.
Wonderful.
And we are nothing but the people we are surrounded by. I like the way you touched a very deeper concepts of Mahabhagavatam around the universal creation, 14 logams, the universal creation, the cosmos, and also you touched on some of the scientific aspects and all that. We are living in a time where youth would like to say they are atheist, and they have no idea on, and I think there's a time and place for everything. So somebody like you who can help enlighten them, even in remote fashion in today's day and age, will go a long way. My charter is to bring larger audience, but I want to make sure we have somebody like you who have a very balanced approach of scientific and deeper jnanam, the spiritual, the scriptural knowledge, and aligning it to a modern way of conveying it to the youth, like the way they like to be conveyed upon. So thank you so much for the session. I just want to call, and then I'm active in this group, but we need your help.
Sure. Anytime you need any help. This is my favorite topic anytime, but this is all because of the grace of Swamiji. All the content that he has made it so easy and palatable for us, and I'm just being a messenger presenting that. But any help that you need, I'm up for it. And especially if you're trying to reach out to youth who like to have a good discussion with logic and all that stuff, so you can count on me, and any way I can help out on that. See, one of the things that we see with the youth today is that they're very logical. Unless you give them a solid reason and really force them to think on their own, you can't lead them, but you can lead them to thinking. And when they are brought in with proper logic and all stuff, that's when things can actually move. So it really helps. That's what I've seen, and that one of the things that attracted me, to Swamiji to begin with, because when he presented it for the first time, very logical in a very structured manner, layer by layer. So I'm with an engineering background. I was like, anybody who can think rationally, logically cannot refute that. It's so simple. And that is the beauty of, how he has written out this Bhagavad Gita, and we are all taking benefit from it. But thank you. And you can certainly count on me, any help that I can provide. So, and you can extend the outreach, get people if you can, more than happy to help you out on that. Yes, Minuji.
Yeah, I see Minuji's hand raised and Seemaji's as well. Seemaji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, everyone. I'll make it quick. Science has not yet provided Vidyan, the experience, as our scriptures have, with self-experimentation and self-introspection. And then mythology was a word supplied by the English during their invasion of India. So that's it. Now I'll post the rest in the blog. Thank you.
Shyamji will, thank you so much, Seemaji, for calling that out. So it's no longer mythology, Shyamji. That's one new thing you can take away. Yes, Minuji, I think Minuji's husband. So let's.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Good to see you, sir. Good to see you.
This is Vinod Kapoor, better known as Mr. Meenu Kapoor.
Good to see you, Vinodji.
Anyway, I couldn't resist, but I had to input something.
Sure.
And it is, for example, Swamiji and Maharaji has reconciled the Vedas as spiritual knowledge and science, especially Swamiji's lecture at Stanford University.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one thing. And the second thing is, Bharat was a golden bird, right?
Yep.
And over 1,000 years of domination, all this knowledge that we have of the Vedas has been systematically destroyed. Dismantled. So I am a product of the convent schools, and I hate to say this, but I didn't have any knowledge about the dynasties of the South, the Cholas, the Pallavis.
Mm-hmm.
Senior citizen, I didn't know about it. So the fact of the matter is, and of course this is getting into a little bit of reality Maya world, that the four after partition, the 4 education ministers were non-Hindus, and they systematically destroyed our Hindu dynasty. I didn't know too much about the Sikhs and Shivaji, for example. I was taught, we all learned, even today, Akbar the Great and Humayun and Aurangzeb, we know who was the father, son, and all this, but we don't know all the other history. So my point is, we have not been taught the real history, and the history books need to change. And all the knowledge that is worth knowing, and this thing is in the Vedas, we have it all.
Very true. Thank you so much, Vinod ji. Great points. Yes, we are sitting on a gold mine, actually. You just have to realize that. And that's very true. Actually, history is written by the ones who are in power, and then that becomes a truth for us, right? So we have to take it with a pinch of salt. Yeah.
One more point, that Ramayana and Mahabharata being mythological, it is the British who did all that.
British, they brought in that, yeah.
The fact that, we went to Chitrakoot and there is all signs, and then you have the Hetu, they are now finding, NASA is finding now that what we have known for thousands of years. Anyways, proud Hindu.
Thank you very much, Vinod ji. Yeah, like I said, it's a cyclical process. So maybe if you're born in some other time, we'll see some different dynamics in this world, right? So it just keeps on changing. Very good discussion, very engaging discussion. You can say Radhe Radhe to Minu ji as well from my side. I can see one more hand. Do we have any last user who wanted to part, or I Zoom user, it says.
Zoom user, yeah. Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe, Zoom G or Zoom user G. So if you could.
Are you able to? We can't hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Myself, Asha Pandit. I don't know how it
no worries.
does Zoom user.
You are better than my mom. Okay, she still doesn't know how to connect to Zoom. So what I have to do every day. I'll tell you the secret today. Okay, that's fine.
No,
this is how I show her. Okay, I have a mobile. I call and she's on a video call all the time. Okay?
No, I always join since 2 years away with my name. Today only first time it happened. And I was also astonished how it happened. But sometime a new phone must be that.
Sure. No worries.
But I have to say so many things about our Vedas, Vedic philosophy, how it was scientific and advanced. Before so many years, our Rishi Munis has had that ability to see as Sanjay narrated all the things.
Yes.
हम लोग जो अभी टेलीविजन कितने सालों के बाद जो देख रहे हैं वो उस जमाने में ऋषि मुनि अपने ध्यान में देख लेते थे और सब कुछ करते थे, और आर्यभट्ट वगैरह खगोल शास्त्र में. और मैं कहूंगी कि अभी बहुत ही लंबा डिस्कशन हो सकता है, तो मैं कल इसमें ज्यादा बात करेंगे, because I know how long the session is going, and you must be tired, all of you, that I will not prolong my discussion. Thank you so much and everything. And one thing I have to inform that there is one university, Hindu University of America, which has so many Vedic courses free of charge, and it on a TV Asia channel they advertise that.
That's a good info. Thank you for sharing this.
Yes, and anybody can. Somebody was asking how to get the knowledge, authentic knowledge about Vedas. They have those so many courses, and I will confirm that name of it. I think Hindu University of America.
You can check it out and paste it in the chat
Yes,
tomorrow.
yes. Tomorrow we will.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Asha ji. King, we can do our closing prayers now. I know we are
Yes.
way over time. Thank you very much. Let's do our closing prayers and get it going. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukh Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day, a great rest of your evening. Yes, Shyamji, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, Radhe. Just two things. One, that as you said that the more I know, the more I do not know. I know that. That's for a fact, as always. And second thing you said that in art session में the first 20 minutes भगवान कृष्ण आए थे, so I would want that it comes true someday, so that we all have image that honor to meet through you. Radhe Radhe.
Wow. I mean, hopefully that's the hope. Maybe in one of the sessions, like we were able to pull in Swamiji, we can pull in Lord Krishna himself, okay?
That it comes true. Whatever you say, come true. Radhe Radhe.
Pallabiji, you have to make sure that you spotlight him, otherwise you'll miss him, okay? Great.
Wow. What
Great
an
discussion.
imagination. Yeah. Hope someday.
Hope someday. See, we are anyway doing it's called a Gyan Yagna. So never know, a lot of good things can happen, realizations can happen, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. Wonderful. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for another engaging session, and have a blissful day and a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nitinji, for such an awesome session. Thank you everyone for joining, and have a great day.
Thank you.